processing model. Please welcome to the stage Wendi, the Chief Contract Service.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to share with you a story about transitioning DWR to the center-led contract processing model. I need to first tell you, though, what happened before center-led. Our DWR director formed a task force to investigate and document the inefficiencies in the contracting process. Historically, DWR was decentralized, like many of your agencies probably handle your contracts. The department had approximately 70 employees, partially trained to develop service contracts. DWR had about a 65% approval rating of our contracts from our governing agency, Department of General Service Office of Legal Services. 90% of the contracts submitted to contract services had to be redone. There was no tracking system. There were no means of requiring the contracts. There was a large number of bid protests. Contracts were often lost with no tracking for them. Customer satisfaction was not existent. Staff and managers, agency-wide, were very frustrated and disillusioned with contract services. Decentralized was clearly no way to manage our contracts. How do you transition an entire agency to a new way of conducting business? First, you hire a strong leader who has passion, vision, a plan, experience, prior successes, subject matter knowledge, excellent communication skills, and great people skills. For fiscal year 2013-14, contract services processed approximately 300 contracts totaling $242 million. Steps taken to center-led. First, you must acquire buy-in from upper management. Center-led was approved through governance. Hire harder, train smarter. For many in the contracting field, we know that it's a tough skill set to manage contracts, and it's not a job for everyone. I've developed a tough interview process with mandatory supplemental questions, written exercise, impromptu presentations, and very specific interview questions. No cutting corners with background and reference checks. I've hired over 40 contract specialists in my 7 years with the department. You develop a detailed step-by-step procedure. You collaborate with partners with programs to understand their service needs. We transitioned 28 divisions to the center-led process. Created a service contract action request form that I aptly call my scarf. I wanted something warm and fuzzy to get people used to using it. It's actually the electronic means of initiating a service contract. Tell customers what you can do for them and follow through and do it. Increase production with documentation to back it up. Implemented quality control. Every contract goes through a rigorous review before it leaves our office. I also promoted my quality control manager, who has over 20 years of contracting experience, and combined with my experience, we have over 40 years of contracting expertise between the two of us. We get customers' feedback. I created a survey that's sent out to every manager after we complete a contract to get their feedback on how well we process their contracts. And then you continually change your process to meet your customers' needs. Decreased interest penalty payments to vendors. Additional cost savings were by decreasing the numbers of bid protests. Implemented conducting structured bid conferences. Be transparent. Create a center of excellence. In 2013, DGS auditors compliance had no findings of contract services, and contract services has achieved 100% approval rating from DGS OLS since 2012. Provide excellent training to staff. Scope of work is the foundation of a contract. I've created a scope of work class that I teach to the department, and in collaboration with our DWR legal office, I created a contract management and administration course that I also teach several times a year at our DWR training office, and it's widely attended by employees and managers throughout the department. Please stop by our display table, and you can see some of our flow charts that we have and meet some of my contract specialists who are here today. You can guide your agency to a more efficient, center-led contracting process. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for that presentation. Contractings are certainly probably the linchpin of most of the work in our agency. So my question is, with this center-led and getting back to the scope of work, your subject matter experts are obviously out in the field and they speak one language and your contracting people speak another language. So how did you stop all these contracts from getting frustrated between the different languages that everybody uses?
Well, part of it is the scope of work class, and I've trained a number of staff for 4 years now on the scope of work, but we collaborate very, very closely with them. And part of the transitioning, we went out and had kickoff meetings with the program managers and with the staff to let them know that we still needed their subject matter expert. They needed to tell us what services that we could provide to them through the contracting process. But as subject matter experts of doing the contract, to let us do the bundling and put the contract together. But we work with them as part of the SCARF. They submit their scope of work and their cost sheet to us, and then 95% of the rest of the processing is done by my contract specialists.
So contracting is technical, difficult. You're part of the controls of the department, and obviously a lot of money flows through that. That being said, that doesn't mean that the Department of Finance wants to fund more people to do this work. So did you have to take resources from the field and bring them into your unit in Sacramento to get this done, or how did you manage to pull this off?
No, as I mentioned, there were over 70 contract coordinators, they were called before that, throughout the department. And no, when they ran the idea of center-led up through governance, they got the positions for 1 additional manager and 6 additional staff. So that's a total of 12 staff. We do receive overhead, so programs do pay into us as overhead to support the contract services under the Business Service Office. But no additional funding from the department.
Well, your results are fantastic, really amazing. So I guess this question is really for the governor's office. When are they going to have you go around from department to department to share this wonderful approach?
I'd be happy to. I'm available.
Got it.
And we have a few people from DGS here today, too, that I'm sure they'd like to share your wealth of information. You've mentioned a couple times the former director realized that things needed to change, put a task force, I think you said, together, and you've said a couple times that things were decided, the center-led decision through the governance. Can you describe a little bit how you, the director, others formed your decision-making around what you were going to do?
Well, it's a very, very thick task force report that had all of the things that were problematic. And actually, my predecessor who had hired me, Bill Fackenthal, had worked in the federal government, and the Sacramento office has a similar center-led process for the Sacramento federal government. And so they modeled it after that and sold the idea that if you would allow to have subject matter experts that just process the contracts and do that as their only work that they do and not be scattered and diversified, having other program work, that type, and to build that core of center of excellence, that it would be successful.
Sounds a little bit like LA County, doesn't it? That's interesting. So how long did this take?
I was hired on Halloween of 2007, and by the end of 2011, I'd transitioned all 28 divisions at the department, and it's ongoing now.
Sort of a follow-up to Diane's question earlier about the program manager, if you will, the person, the subject expert. Did you have difficulty taking away from them and centralizing, if you will. How did you manage that?
Of course, of
Because
course.
someone's losing control at one point.
And not just losing control, but a lot of the contract coordinators thought that they may even lose their jobs.
Yeah.
So part of it was for me to go out and to sell this idea. I took a lot of my contract specialists with me. We did kickoff meetings with the program managers and with the previous contract coordinators. And we showed them the differences. I've developed roles and responsibilities and how it was changing from their role to ours, but that they had a lot more focus, that they needed to focus on the programs and the mission and the scientific things and running the state water project that we do overall in the department, that they weren't going to lose. They were just going to be giving up the complexity of having to deal with contracts and the frustration in the back and forth, and something that they weren't subject matter experts with. So yes, I had to do a lot of selling, went around to a lot of the program managers and followed through with what I said, gave them metrics, showed them by the customer surveys, by being responsive to them, by having continual meetings, by sharing information when rules or regulations change from DGS, and just being out there and collaborating with them and letting them know that we could be trusted to do the contracts for the department. And got the support of our legal office. They were one of the first organizations that we transitioned, and they loved it because it stopped 70-plus employees and managers calling our legal office all the time for advice. We're the point of contact for our legal office, so it lessened their workload, and we work with them as experts on developing the contracts.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you. Excellent presentation.